Thank you. My name's Lane Tolbert. I'm, I guess what you'd call a career prosecutor. I've been doing it for 23 years now, and for the most days I still love it. Started in Birmingham. Now I'm in Bessemer. Bessemer is a subdivision of Birmingham, which is, it's not a large place. If you remember, and some of y'all may be old enough, the TV show In the Heat of the Night with Carol O'Connor. That's what Bessemer's like. It's a small town, but we seem to have a kill in every show. And a lot of people know each other. And where I work, it's not just that city. It's the other places around there, but some of those are just as bad and just as lively. To touch on one thing Marty's talking about with Brady, in our state we have open file discovery on capital cases, and our office has open file discovery on every case, which means when I'm prosecuting a capital case, I will tell the defense, if you want to see my file, just come look at it. I have nothing to hide. We talk about prosecutors winning. I like to win. But to me, the definition of winning also includes justice. It can't include anything but justice. So when I can tell you after 23 years I've lost very few cases, it's not that the jury hasn't found someone not guilty. It's that I've sort of agreed with them a lot of times. Some of those cases, justice was done. It's like, okay, I can live with that. Because that's what we're supposed to do. We have a screening process that Melba and I talked about where we talk to the police officer and we'll tell them, I don't think so. I don't like the facts. I don't like your witness. There's not enough. But for something like that, maybe we'd have more issues with a wrongful conviction. We've had cases, and I'm sure both these guys had, where you've been in the middle of a trial and you've determined, I don't think so, and you've decided to dismiss it in front of the jury. I mean, after 23 years, there's been a number of those. But obviously that's not why I'm here to talk today. Mine's a lot fresher than these guys. Mine was 2012. Defendant named Frank Sealie. Frank was charged with capital murder in a drive-by shooting. We do have the death penalty in Alabama, but this did not qualify for it because it's not an aggravating circumstance. The day of the shooting, with 3 guys in a car, drive by what they call the Blue Store in Brighton, Alabama, which is outside of Bessemer. The Blue Store is called the Blue Store because it's blue. That's the only reason I can come up with. Ajimu Coles is the guy who was killed. Kevin Hatter was the target. And in a lot of these cases, they don't shoot very well. They shoot Ajimu and kill him. They hit Kevin and he is wounded. That's on let's say that's on a Saturday. That's not when this case began. This case began basically the Saturday before at a Marathon gas station where Kevin Hatter, my witness, is, and Frank Sealie, my chief defendant. Also a co-defendant in the shooting named Cabrera Brock were at a gas station. At this gas station, we have Frank Sealie and Cabrera in a car with a third man and a lady. A stranger comes up, actually the lady's boyfriend comes up, sees her in the car with these guys and reaches in, it's on video, and punches her 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 separate times. Kevin Hatter is there, but sort of just behind the guy punching. Not involved in it, he's just there. Well, we have video where Frank Sealie takes out his gun and shoots past the lady towards the man who was punching her, and he happens to shoot a car with a man and his kids in it. Luckily, they're not hit. We have that on video. We know Kevin Hatter's there. We know Frank Sealie's there. Nothing happens otherwise that day. A few days later, Kevin Hatter goes to where he knows Frank Sealie is with Kevin's brother to sort of, in his words, quash this, to make it, it's like, I wasn't doing anything, I don't want you to be mad at me. He happens to take his gun, which is not unusual where I come from. And they walk over to a lady's house where they are, and let's see, Frank Sealie, whose nickname is Frank Nitty, to continue the Chicago references. Cabrera Brock is also there. Cabrera's nickname is Fathead, and I haven't figured that one out yet as to why he's Fathead. But while they're there, Kevin and Frank talk, and the talking escalates to shooting. And they both take out their guns and shoot at each other. And although they're as close as I am to you, they don't hit each other. They hit a house behind there, and some brick splinters injure a young lady sitting outside. So I have two incidents where I know Frank Seeley's got a gun now, and he's shooting at other people. And within a few days after that, the drive-by shooting happens, where Frank is identified by one person as being the driver, by another person as being the shooter in the back seat. Now, I'll be honest, those inconsistencies did not bother me at the time, and still don't really, because in that instance, people will sometimes make that mistake. At least that's what I tell myself anyway. And I can live with that still. Out of all the people I know had to be at that blue store, only 2 or 3 people came forward to talk. One being Ebony Danner. She put Frank Sealie in the front seat. Kevin Hatter, who survived the shooting, put Frank Sealie as doing the shooting. Kevin Hatter also identified Cabrera Brock as being involved in the shooting. Now, before Frank Sealie, which is the case we're talking about, I had already tried Cabrera Brock. I had lost Cabrera Brock. I didn't think justice was done there because I still think he's involved. So I go into this case thinking, I'm going to get my butt kicked here. You know, I had people in my office say, hey, you want me to try that with you? I said, no, you don't want to be with this one. This is not a winner. I'll just take my lumps and move on. You know, I had someone I thought was involved, but I didn't think I had a strong enough case. I had no physical evidence. I had 2 eyewitnesses that said he was involved. Right after the shooting, Kevin Hatter is driving himself to the hospital, and one of the police officers catch up with him, not knowing he was shot, but is yelling back and forth in the car, who did this? Who shot you? And he immediately identifies Frank Sealie. So if Kevin Hatter dies, I have a dying declaration right there. I think I'm looking at this going, okay, I may not win this case, but I think I know who's involved in this case. So we go to trial, and the defense attorney does something that if you're a young lawyer, don't do to the prosecutors. She just sort of brags that she's going to kick some butt. Not exactly her words, but, you know, I'll clean it up a little bit. And that gets back to me. Well, you know, I may lose, but you're going to pay for it now. So, and there's ways of making it pay. When they don't know the rules of evidence in order to get something in, I'm going to keep it out. Now, if I trust the evidence, sometimes I'll let it in. But not after you've told everyone you're going to kick my butt. If you don't know how, then I'm not going to give you a free shot. And she didn't know how. And we'll talk about that a little bit too, some defense responsibilities in this too, because it's not just on us. So during trial, Kevin Hatter identifies Frank Sealie. Ebony Danner has already testified. Like I said, we don't have any real physical evidence that ties these guys to it, other than we have the video. We've shown that. We've talked about the shooting less than a week before. So in my mind, and in everybody's mind there, even if he didn't do it, he's probably good for it. He had an alibi witnesses, and they testified very well. One of their defense witnesses was caught in a lie, and, you know, again, I pointed that out to him. But in my final, what started my wondering, and I knew the case was weak, but I didn't really wonder. But I asked Kevin Hatter, my main witness, in my redirect, and I'm just posturing for the jury here, are you absolutely 100% sure this is the man who shot you? Now, I don't have to prove it to that level. But when I know it's there, I don't really mind. So are you 100% sure he shot you? And he is, I mean, I'm standing just this far away from him, the jury's right here, and I see something in his eyes, and he's like, I don't know. He didn't say that, but in my head I hear, oh my God, he's not sure. But I'm still resting easy. I mean, he says he's sure, and it's good. I still have a loser case. But I don't. The jury comes back and they find him guilty of capital murder. And I'm scared to death at this point, wondering what have I done? And how do we fix it? It takes a while. One thing that was interesting was when Frank Sealie was talking at his sentencing, he said he put the hope in the prosecutor, me, that the truth would be found out. It's like, okay, I guess it's on me. And I took that to heart. And that sort of wounded me at the time. It's like, what did I miss? I go back, and I've looked back at it. Everything I have still points to Frank Sealie. Well, after the conviction, after the sentencing, he was sentenced to life without parole, they file a motion for new trial, which is standard. In the meantime, I've started trying to look into some other things. I've got one of our retired police officers who is an investigator to start looking at things. The police department who investigated it, to say they're poor and undertrained is an understatement. But they do the best they can. But Don Lundy, my investigator, he went and found the lady who was at that first shooting, second shooting, the one who got injured by the splinters from the brick. He talked to her. She said she had been there the day they left to do the shooting that caused the killing, and that Frank was not with them. I said, okay, that's something, but it's not enough for me to go, never mind, let's overturn this verdict. I got to have something. But at least that got me started. She was not interviewed by well, she actually testified in the trial, but none of us knew she'd been there during when they drove off. And none of us knew to even think to ask. Talked to, I think, her brother, who's in federal prison for drug trafficking. He was there also. He said that Frank had not gotten in that car when it drove off. He was not available to us at all. Investigator went and talked to Ebony Danner again, the lady who put him in the front seat. Ebony said that she said only what Kevin Hatter told her to say, her boyfriend. It's like, okay, well, at least I know now I'm getting on the right track. Now, understand, in this case, I don't have anything inadmissible that tells me he did it. You know, sometimes I'll have a statement, some sort of confession that's ruled inadmissible that will at least make me know that I'm on the right track. We don't have anything here. In fact, we have a statement where Frank says it was ruled inadmissible, but he says they were hunting me, I was hunting them. It's like, okay, I'm sure I got the right guy here. So, make a long story a little shorter. We got his cell phone. This is part of the defense responsibilities too. We got Frank's cell phone. They turned it into us, and Frank was now willing to talk to my investigator, and he gave him, everything he wanted to hear. We got his cell phone, and I'm thinking, okay, we can finally use a cell tracker and find out where he was. But because of the time length and because we didn't have this phone, the defense had it, that data was lost. If I'd had it initially, if they'd said, look, we weren't there, I can prove it, and hand it to me, I can have it analyzed and I can find out if he's telling me the truth or not. But because they waited so long, we didn't have it. So my one big hope of some forensic evidence being able to tell me I was wrong still doesn't exist. So we were about to give up, and we decided, let's just go talk to the horse. So we went and talked to Kevin Hatter. Kevin was working at a Piggly Wiggly warehouse in Bessemer. So he comes out in his overalls from the freezer, and me and my investigator, we're just going to talk to him. And they talk a little bit, and I'm not the most patient man in the world. I find, Kevin, this man is doing life without parole. And again, the same question. Are you absolutely sure he shot you? No, I'm not. Now, I wanted to hit him and I wanted to hug him because it was based on what he told me the first time. But at least now I knew that I had something that I could take back to the judge. We took it back to Judge David Hobdy, and we agreed to the motion for new trial, and I dismissed the case. My one true regret is I made it worse for the victim's mother, Ajimu Coles, again. I mean, I try to give them some closure. I don't think you get closure at our courthouse. You get closure from God, and that's not at the courthouse. At least not in mine. I might do this. And I made it worse on her now because now there's no justice for her son. As Mike was talking about the happy endings, depends on where you sit. Frank Seeley's out. I did make him plead to the shooting into the car because he'd been in jail for long enough. He got time credit for that and moved on. But 2 months after Frank got out, my witness, Kevin Hatter, was killed. Luckily not by Frank Sealie. Kevin was a drug dealer, and he had cases pending that I was able to keep out because it's an allegation. But, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. He got in a gunfight that he pulled the gun first and got killed for it 2 months after this happened. And, immediately when this happens, Frank Sealie is our suspect. But again, luckily, we were able to show he was not there. As Mike's talking about, some cases you have misconduct, you have the shock to conscience. I hope we don't have it here because I'm the prosecutor. But honestly, in a way, this one scares me more because I can control what I do bad. And I can't control what the police do bad, but sometimes when it's all there, I mean, everything still points to Frank Sealie. But I know he didn't do it. Those ones that scare me more than somebody doing the wrong thing. The one thing to add, the reaction I got from other DAs, my boss, when I first told him what was going on, he told me, well, if you think he didn't do it, he must not have done it. Because, I mean, I'll try anything. And that's part of the problem here, I guess. I mean, if you want to try it, fine. We'll see who's better. Sometimes how I feel. I got emails from guys I used to work with praising me, congratulating me. One guy in our office, as I'm giving an interview for this, it started my trip up here. He walks by and sees the news reporter and asks me who I'm going to let out next. So, but otherwise, they've been very, very supportive.